This podcast offers you the opportunity to explore new perspectives through compelling interviews with beautiful human beings and words of wisdom and love. The show was created to guide and inspire you. If you're looking for more meaning in your day-to-day life, if you're looking to be wowed by everyday people, if you're on a journey to joy, peace of mind, freedom, or a wild new adventure, then honey, you are in the right place. Welcome to Turning Inward with Dr. Vivian.
Welcome to Turning Inward with Dr. Vivian Carrasco. Our intention today is to open your heart and nurture your spirit as you travel on the road without miles, moving inward on your epic and personal journey of discovery. I am Rebecca Polvey, your co-host, and I'm here with Dr. Vivian Carrasco. This is the first episode of our fall 2014 season. We are excited to share our story with you and grateful that you are here with us.
Today we're going to be talking about how we got here. So we're exploring, as a bit of an introduction to you, our listener, how Rebecca and I met and what got us here to visit with you. So Rebecca, do you want to start with the story of how you and I met?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I was interviewing for an administrative position with the Richmond, Virginia Chamber of Commerce, and this was for a nonprofit called Workforce One. I was scheduled to interview with all 6 Workforce One employees, but Vivian couldn't attend due to a scheduling conflict. This was a position that I really wanted, and I felt I nailed that interview because I reflected that desire as well as the willingness to learn the skills I didn't have. So I didn't meet Vivian until the first day of work. And I remember feeling that someone full of life, determination, and action had just walked in the room. And I remember thinking, I want to know her better. I also sensed of everyone there, Vivian would be the most open to work with. And, I did help Vivian with her work process, but I have to say she helped me grow in my position as well as my career. And I always felt that my work with you was just a valuable investment and time well spent. That you were there to genuinely help and make a difference. And I think that your personality is such that I easily felt I could trust you. And I grew to love the depth of your heart. And when my now husband asked me to marry him, it was Vivian that I asked to be the matron of honor. And so after a few years, Workforce One came to an end. Vivian moved to Texas, and we moved to Beijing, China, due to my husband's job. And that time of our lives is a very interesting story, I think, for another time. Vivian and I stayed in touch here and there through the years, but there did come a time when we lost contact. And I think I just feel with a real friend, you don't have to be in contact all the time, because when you meet again, you just start where you left off. And I happened to search for Vivian on Facebook one day and sent her a friend request. And then I was looking and I saw she had posted a comment about a business that she was considering launching. She was looking for help. And I remember right away thinking, oh, I wonder what Vivian is doing and how can I help? Then when she mentioned Love.Being.Human, that was really all it took. And even though I didn't know what the substance was, I knew if it came from Vivian, it was going to be something I wanted to explore further. And I just love being your chief happiness officer. The other day, I was explaining what we were doing to a dear friend of mine. And she just started to really laugh. And she said, Rebecca, you've always been the chief happiness officer. And it just really warms my heart, Vivian, that you recognize that about me. And I really wasn't surprised when we started talking about moving forward with your Love.Being.Human system that you asked me to take a series of personality tests to see how we would work together. And I can remember chuckling when you sent them, thinking that's so Vivian. And I just love that about you. And I think our styles mesh so well together. And I guess that kind of sums up my impression of how we met and kind of how we've intersected and how this process got going.
If you could see me, Rebecca, you'd see that I'm literally grinning from ear to ear. Like my smile is holding up my cheeks right now. It is a beautiful story. And what I love most is that there's so much detail in it.
Oh, thank that's me.
It is you, and it's
It's
so
me.
you.
It's
And,
so me.
but that's beautiful. I think for everyone, I'm going to share my what I remember about us meeting. And actually, I don't have like a first moment meeting. I have our Flexi Woman. I just I one of the things I have to start off with though is that I'm very grateful that at that age and season and time of my life that I was um, awake enough to recognize what a beautiful person you are, because
Oh,
you are
thank
absolutely a jewel.
thank
And you're right. I felt an immediate connection to you, and that's why as I'd stop by or whenever we'd work together, it's almost like we giggled like schoolgirls
hmm
and we took breaks. But I tried very much to be serious in those days. So I did have some sort of a determination in me because I thought everything I was doing was important. So I've learned I've learned better now. So, oh, and gosh, being your maid of honor was an absolute honor.
Mm,
And just
a
witnessing your
beautiful thing.
relationship with your husband actually was beautiful in and of itself.
Mm, mm.
And you and I, as we've talked, there's mementos of our friendship that literally have traveled with me over all those years. So we lost touch in human terms, but I don't think that our hearts ever disconnected, which is why um, I feel like God sent you back to me right when I needed you.
I
So,
agree.
so
I agree.
thank you, thank
Oh,
you,
you're
thank you.
welcome,
Um,
Vivian.
that's
Welcome.
that's my general story of how we met. But to be honest, I think we're meeting every day. You know, as we
Yep.
work together and as we learn more and more about each other, that's one thing that both you and I and everyone that's kind of living in this world can take with them, is that you meet a person, but you meet a different person every day you meet. And I try not to take people for granted, but I just have to say that I remember our laughs and our food and our
Yeah.
fun. And that's what I
I do
remember
too.
about us.
I have, I do too. I have a lot of really wonderful memories, and I always held you close in my heart, Vivian. So I really believe that when I say that about friends, I really think if you have a genuine friendship, you just pick it up wherever you left off, and there's no strings attached and no demands on it. It's just natural and it's just there.
And honestly, that's almost a definition of how I see love.
Hmm.
It's a reaching for without grasping,
I agree.
you
I
know.
agree.
So we're there, and it's the other. I'm staring at the sun as it's about to set, and a metaphor for love is also like the sunshine. It's always there, you know.
Mm,
Sometimes you can't see it because it's the season for nighttime, but the sun is always there.
that's beautiful.
So so that's our first question for you as the audience, as you're listening to our Turning Inward podcast, is because you're going to be hearing from Rebecca and I thought it would be important for us to know, for you to know, and for us to share with you how we came together. And because you're listening to this podcast, actually, you are now coming together with us, and we're very excited and welcoming you into our inner circle.
Well, Vivian, I now that we've talked about how we met, part of that we wanted to include is why we think our relationship works, and after that we can move on to who we are. And for me, it's really simple. I just feel that we have a similar outlook on life. I think we have respect for each other. We are sharing openly, even if we don't agree or have differences. And then I just think we complement each other in our working styles, kind of like yin and yang. And Vivian, I feel like you're just bigger picture, and I'm much more planning and detail oriented. So for me, it's just kind of that simple. Like I have a way of just reaching out and grabbing you and maybe regrounding you when you're getting kind of um, going off a little too quickly, I think.
That's a very nice way to say it. And I'll actually use an analogy that I like to think about with us. Um, it like a someone said to me once that I build castles in the sky. And that's fine, because you take this hook, and you hook it on the castle, and then you either pull it down a little, or you just make sure that line is straight all the way up to that castle.
Yep.
And as we work through processes and talk about things, that you do it in such a beautiful way. I know that you and I giggle sometimes, and at the end of a call, and I'll say, "You just tricked me into that, didn't you?" In a beautiful way.
My husband says I have my ways. He does say that to me.
You totally do. And I think we just naturally, so you're right. We are a yin and yang. And,
Yeah.
and you mentioned respect. And I think in addition to respect, I have, in the same vein as respect, I see your gifts and your talents, and I see them even clearer than I see my own, because it's sometimes we're too close to ourselves, and so I have a lot of respect for the way that you do things, and the person that you are. So thank you for working with me and talking to the folks that are listening. I think that they will see the beauty of the marriage between our two styles as things are born and created from our work together.
Oh, thank you, Vivian. Thank you.
Had to take a deep breath there. That was a little heavy for me.
That's okay.
So how we met, how we worked together,
Mm-hmm.
and then now we're going to answer the question of
Who we are.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, I can start if you want, Vivian.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Well, let's see. I am a mother, a wife, a friend, and most importantly, I really believe that I'm just me. I'm a lifelong learner, a reader, and I'm just so curious about a lot of just many things. And I feel like I've always followed my inner voice just as long as I can remember. I did grow up in a very troubling, dysfunctional, split family environment. And I guess you could say perhaps the odds were stacked against me turning out in such a positive way. So I think one might just wonder how I turned out as I am, with a happy, positive, loving view of life. And I think it has always been that just absolutely strong inner voice. It just whispers to me whenever I'm at a decision point in my life. And I've always felt that if some issue or past hurt or whatever is perhaps holding me back or a person back, then I make every effort. I say, let me find my strength and move ahead. So, and I have a tendency to say, what if I miss out on in something in a joyful life or a wonderful experience because I'm afraid? So I never let go of that. And, a good example is that, I've been a single mom, struggling through what a single mom handles. And I guess, however, the way I see it is that this experience has honed my character. I don't see it in the negative or as a victim, but rather as a blessing. It's just a feeling of great accomplishment for me as I know this ultimate reward of what I just enjoy a rich and loving and fulfilling life with my husband. So I'm just so very grateful that our life experiences have brought us together. And I say to myself, I imagine if I didn't experience the things that I did, then I wouldn't share my life with this wonderful man now. And also, very importantly, my faith. My faith is just an integral part of my world. And it's just woven, I feel, throughout my heart and soul. And I believe it is just the guiding light for the path that I follow. And there's just so much wisdom in the written word, I think, if a person can decide to look. And another facet for me is volunteering and mentoring others. I mean, that has been just so rewarding and fulfilling part of my life. And I feel as though I've been just blessed with certain skills. And my husband is really fond of saying what good is knowledge if you don't share it. And I really believe that. And I think that kind of leads to the word time for me. And I think that's a future discussion we're going to have, is about time. And I think that's something we all have in common. And then we just have to select how we're going to use that time. And I guess I'd like to mention also a little bit about myself, is that my husband and I are self-employed with a business management company. He has his engineering background with an executive MBA as well as PhD in business management. And I have just been a sponge learning from him. I mean, I could just feel right away that the knowledge there would be an invaluable tool in my volunteer work and just a complement to any path I took. So for me, I think the best way to sum it up is it's always about finding a positive solution that feels right with my internal compass. So this is just a kind of a quick summary of what I think are the things that make me me. And that's it.
That's beautiful. And we
Thank
have,
you.
you're welcome. We have a lot of things in common. And I'm going to say about myself that I am actually, probably for the last 4 decades and change, I've been curious about life, which has made me mirror a lot of the same traits that you mentioned about lifelong learning and curiosity. But in the last year or so, that curiosity has really evolved into more of an awe for this experience and this mystery. And the way that we walk through this world. So for me, I see that people are really everything, and love is what matters. And I try to do that in all the things my hands touch, all the work I do, in the words that I share, and in the words that I write. So being in relationship with myself, with my family, with my community, and with the world, I think would be a good description of where I am right now in this moment and what makes me me. And that's where I think that's what I want to say.
Well, that's beautiful, Vivian. I think we are very much a lot alike.
And in the ways that we're different, we're beautifully different.
Yes, absolutely.
You actually had another question that I thought about that has been swimming around in my brain. And literally swimming. It's just doing laps all over the place. And I think the question was, do you have it in front of you?
I do. It's, what do you feel has been the most defining moment of your life?
That question has just been fascinating for me. And the first thing that I thought when I read it was there are millions of them. Millions, and this moment is defining my life. And now this moment is defining my life. And so I thought about that, but then I realized that that's probably not answering the question in the way that everyone would want to hear it answered. So the one moment that I chose to focus on as a definition of my life right now was the car accident in April. And the reason that I'm using that moment is because it literally defined my entire life, from the past, from that point behind me, and from that point forward. And what it did, and it's tough to explain, but I was hit by a car as I was crossing the street, and in the time of probably, I don't know, 3, 5, 7 seconds, the first thing that happened is my life flashed. The moments of my life flashed before my eyes, but just the last moment with each person that I know, love, and trust. Every single person in my life. So it happened instantaneously. And I don't have the language for it, but the closest thing that I can say is that there was this this initial dissolving of anything that wasn't love. There was almost like this cascade of forgiveness that came through me. And then after that, what I now believe happened is that I was sort of shaken, because you're hit by a car, it's a jolt. And in that moment, I was no longer constrained by either my mind or my body. And in the best words that I have right now, I felt a perfect peace. But there was no boundaries. It was everywhere. It was everywhere. There was nothing but that. And it was beautiful. So I would say that is the most defining moment of my life right now.
Vivian, I really agree with you. There were so many times in my life that I can think of as being the most defining. So I thought, well, there is one that pops up just as a first thought and perhaps an interesting story. And that's when I was in my early 40s and still single after 25 years of being divorced. And, I had long-term relationships, but they were just never ones that connected with the depth of my soul. And I was really discouraged. And one day I was talking with my son on the phone, and I told him, I said, I'm just done. I'm not going to date anymore. It just doesn't seem like I can find a man to complement my life. And my son said to me, he goes, Mom, you don't need fixing. So why have you been spending all this time on men who do? And he said, find one that doesn't and you will be happy. And it was like such an aha moment for me. And I said, well, why didn't you mention this a long time ago? Mm-hmm. And how will I find one? And he said to me, you know what, Mom, that's up to you. He said, and I thought, there were just so many thoughts that passed through my mind in that like really short space of time. It was just like a camera was going click, 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 click really fast. And it was like all of a sudden I had clarity and thinking about all the choices and the past relationships. It was going through my head like the speed of a train. And one thing I thought immediately about my son, and I hoped I hadn't impacted him too negatively by my choices. And then the last thing I thought was, oh boy, this opens up a whole new wonderful world. And I just really, I had a new perspective. And it was just a few seconds and all that thinking, but it had such an impact on me. And it just set me on a path of making better choices and rethinking about things and how I wanted to approach it. And the next thing you know, I met my wonderful now husband, Esco, the love of my life and the complement to my soul.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, it really, that's one that that just, whenever I think about that, that's one of the first ones that always comes. So that's the one I wanted to share.
Thank you for sharing. And I think it was Socrates that said, learning is remembering. And so I thought about that when you said that you started to make different choices because you remembered what you had done in the past and how you wanted to move forward. And I think that's key for a lot of people, for me, in my day-to-day living, for me to remember what direction I'm going in and how my choices will move me there or move me away from it.
Well, I guess in closing, we really want to thank everyone so much for being with us here today. And, if you enjoyed the conversation, we invite you to connect with us by joining our inner circle at viviancarrasco.com. And Vivian's last name is spelled Carrasco, so that's viviancarrasco.com. And I'd like to leave you with a final thought, one of Vivian's quotes. Remember, move with purpose and take inspired action.
Thank you. And I'm adding a farewell blessing that I found today that I'd want to share with everyone before we wrap up this call. It is, may the longtime sun shine down upon you. All love surround you. And the pure light within you guide your way on. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today here on Turning Inward with Dr. Vivian. If the show moved the needle for you, please leave an honest review in iTunes. And also make sure you cruise on over to viviancarrasco.com and join us for personal strategies and tips to help you move forward. Ciao, baby.